From racist chants at the University of Oklahoma to a pledge book filled with hateful rhetoric at NC State, fraternities have generated lots of negative news this semester. Good evening, I'm Kristen Lee.
And I'm Susanna Black. Thank you for joining us. On this campus, there's the ongoing investigation into the mysterious death of fraternity brother David Shannon and recent questions about whether the Interfraternity Council enforces its own rules about alcohol.
Sometimes students drink way too many of these.
Me and my both brothers, would get blackout or vomit from activities we were forced to do.
That's just one reason Michael walked out of his fraternity for good.
There were a lot of practices that I just found important, and I didn't want to contribute to the organization anymore.
Michael, whose name and voice we've changed, was a member of an IFC fraternity for a number of years and says the partying became too much.
They were literally handing out bottles of cheap champagne to everyone who was walking in the door.
Especially because it was against the rules.
We kept an off-the-books account.
A secret slush fund, as Michael called it, which he says the frat used to buy alcohol and illegal drugs for parties.
It's sort of a compulsory thing. That you have to pay into this extra fund. Basic measures had to be taken in order for the IFC not to find out.
24 fraternities are under the governance of the Interfraternity Council, or IFC, a board made up of fraternity members. They write their own policies and are the only body that can enforce them. Peter Diaz is the president of the IFC.
Purchasing alcohol, a fraternity purchasing alcohol is not illegal. That's the thing.
Well, this violates your policy.
It violates it if they're providing it common source.
Actually, they can't buy it at all. The policy states no member can coordinate the purchase of alcohol for members or guests, so no slush funds.
That's illegal, but we don't have any way of sort of auditing fraternities' finances.
Aaron Bockenheimer is the director of fraternity and sorority life at UNC. Even he doesn't have the authority to enforce the IFC's rules.
It is not surprising to us that chapters out there are providing alcohol, okay?
He says self-governance isn't working the way it should.
I don't disagree with the fact that it's not working. There may be a need to totally rethink the system.
Bockenheimer says the key might be teaching the groups how to govern themselves. As part of self-governance, the executive board of the IFC will do a party patrol during the last day of classes, visiting all fraternities to see how things are going on the major party day we all call LDOC.
Every day, drivers who break this law put kids at risk as they get on or off school buses. Susanna Black is live at the school bus lot for Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools. Susanna, there are major deterrents in place, but are they working?
A $500 fine and 5 points on your license. You think it would be enough to get drivers to stop when kids are getting on and off the bus. But every day, thousands of drivers continue to put our young people at risk.
One car after another speeding past a stopped school bus. Watch closely as this child crosses the street. The driver almost runs him over.
Oh my God!
Drivers struck and killed 13 North Carolina children during the past 15 years.
There was a car that was not paying attention and almost hit a child.
Robin Small says in her 20 years driving buses, she's seen hundreds of drivers blow right past the bus's extended stop arm.
Texting while they're driving on the phone, holding their dogs in their laps.
And that something has to be done.
In North Carolina, more than 3,000 drivers pass by stopped school buses every day. But officials say that cameras like this one can help identify those drivers and slow down this growing problem.
The stop arm camera. Derek Graham says it gives 3 different angles of the car involved in the violation.
Our state law requires that we be able to identify the motorist, the person that's driving that car.
Without that image, there's no case. So if 13,500 buses on the road in our state every day, why do only 400 to 500 of those have stop arm cameras? That's only 3%.
There's 2 things. The system costs about $3,000 per bus. And then the second is the manpower takes a fair amount of manpower to follow one of these through, to grab the image, to turn it over to law enforcement. Then it takes manpower on their part, and then the district attorney has to prosecute that.
Graham says the solution doesn't rest with the technology on the buses, but with the people breaking the law.
When you're using the stop arm camera, it's after the violation has already taken place, right? And then it's too late. If there's a child out there, once it's taken place, it's too late.
Now, knowing when the restriction begins is crucial. Anytime the bus comes to a full stop, the stop arm is completely extended and the lights are flashing. You have to stop and can't start again until the bus begins to move. Kristen?
So important to be responsible behind that wheel. Susanna Black live at the Chapel Hill Carborough City Schools bus lot. Thanks, Susanna.
A traditional Sunday service at Calvary Lutheran. You might see some empty pews and mostly older faces. But drive 10 miles through Concord, North Carolina, and you'll see a much different scene at Elevation Church.
I walk into the experience and there's music playing, everybody's excited.
Corey Brumbles has been a member of the non-denominational megachurch since 2013, after spending her childhood in more traditional churches, including Calvary.
I grew up Lutheran, and every single time that we had a service, it didn't click.
Or you can pretend to pull it up on your device and play Candy Crush.
But Brumbles was hooked to Elevation pastor Stephen Furtick's more contemporary approach. And she's not alone. UNCC religious studies professor Sean McLeod says traditional denominations are losing members in big numbers.
Presbyterian Church USA, for example, has lost about 40 to 50% of their members since 1965. Now, where do those people go? Some of them found their ways into these large evangelical seeker churches.
According to the Hartford Institute for Religion Research, megachurches are growing at a rate of almost 10% a year. So what's drawing so many to these non-traditional churches?
This idea of evangelizing people by trying to make them comfortable in non-church-like settings. So to have religious events, but in buildings that didn't look like churches, and to have events that didn't seem traditionally church-like.
When Elevation Church first started a decade ago, their 100-plus members would have filled up a space this size. And today, Elevation would need an arena this size to fit its more than 17,000 members. But not everyone thinks bigger is better. Mike Rimkus has been going to Calvary for more than 20 years.
My son invited us to Elevation. It's kind of glitz and everything, and that's not us. We want more of a personal touch.
Calvary's pastor Debbie Fry says the church is losing members to megachurches like Elevation.
Their youth have felt attracted to the worship that the megachurch is providing, and so the parents have gone along to support the youth.
Many of the churchgoers at Calvary are more than 50 years old, and Brumble says if traditional churches want to retain younger members, they have to evolve.
With the way kids are growing up now, they need something different.
Pastor Fry says she knows change is inevitable.
What does it look like to go into the future? How do we look in the midst of that and still be who we are?
And she doesn't plan on switching out her choir for a rock band anytime soon. In Concord, I'm Susanna Black reporting. It's the end of an era.
My career in broadcast journalism is coming to an end.
That was 40 years in the making.
As it turns out, I have ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease.
Larry Stogner covered everything from presidential races to the fall of Saigon, but his roots are at UNC.
I really thought I wanted to be a pharmacist. My heart was not in it, so I lost interest, dropped out of school, joined the Air Force.
Where he spent 4 years, then returned to Carolina with a different plan in mind.
Someone in the service told me they thought that I would be a good broadcaster. And that little germ stayed with me.
And it's a good thing, because he passed it on to everyone he's touched.
I hope to be like him as a journalist.
Andrea Blanford is a reporter at ABC 11 and a Tar Heel herself, and says working with Stogner has taught her about the profession.
He's always in control, and that's what you need when you're looking for someone who's credible, who's going to give you the news as it really happens.
And so much more.
He's touched so many people because he's been here for so many years, and it won't be the same without him, but we're going to try.
And for Fred Shropshire, another Tar Heel and colleague.
And the one thing about Larry Stogner is throughout his entire career, he's always been up front, on the lines, telling stories.
An anchorman, a true anchorman. He was the first anchorman I'd ever met, really.
So Larry, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
For giving us 40 amazing years.
To all of you, I say one last time, thanks for the company and goodbye.
So you can see the trail used to come right through here.
Gib Barris has walked this property since he was a kid.
The bridge kind of started right about here.
And crossed this river too.
To catch the school bus, we'd walk across the footbridge to the highway where the school bus would go by.
Now he uses his car, but back in the day, that footbridge was his only way to get across the water.
This was one way that people had access to the outside world.
There are 23 of these footbridges in North Carolina, built in the early 1900s by the Department of Transportation to connect those separated by rivers.
They went to communities that have since changed or moved on or passed on.
Author Katie Schultz became intrigued with the bridges shortly after moving to Appalachia.
They were designed by George Knipe and his team of local bridge engineers, and they were all built under his watch.
And for Knipe, it was important that no two bridges were the same.
22 of the 23 footbridges here in Appalachia are 3 feet wide. However, Honeycutt Bridge is 4. That's because a cemetery lies on the other side, and the coffins had to be carried by foot.
Schultz says though the bridges might not have much use now, their history is something that should never be forgotten.
At one point in time, that was it for those people to cross the waterways. That was the main way to go. It was the quickest way. It's how you did your business. And it's not quite the same nowadays, but luckily some of them are still standing.
Gib Barris's bridge isn't one of them.
That was the demise of this bridge. When it broke off, there where you see it broke, the upper portion of the tree fell right across the cables of the bridge and broke it in half and just lay it in the river.
If it's damaged to that extent, it's very unlikely that it will be repaired.
It was bittersweet. They're a fun thing to have, an interesting part of the history of Appalachia.
In Bakersville, I'm Susanna Black reporting.